Before we begin episode number 337, I do want to add an additional piece of context to this episode. We were scheduled to release this at 10 o'clock this morning. We opted to delay that because we had the opportunity to add an additional interview to the show this week. In addition to having former Jackal pitching coach Tommy Lawrence on the program, we've also gotten Jackal GM John Hunt. These are the two main players in the current Jackal situation that's been going on all week. We discussed that situation in depth on this week's show. That conversation and Tommy's interview were both recorded on Thursday night. The John Hunt interview was recorded just a few hours ago at noon on Saturday. One of these interviews came together rather quickly, hence the brevity in it. Also, in John's interview, what may appear as evasiveness is really just respect for an ongoing legal situation. He's limited by what he can say. So that is something I want to make very clear here, that legal situation has restricted his ability to speak as freely as he would like. And we want to make that very clear and obvious before we get into today's episode. In addition to that, I also will add that the commentary was recorded on Thursday night as well, as I previously said. And as a result, does not take into account what we learned in John's interview. What we learned from that has changed our opinions on some matters. And as a result, we're going to have additional commentary on that, either on the bonus episode that will be released in the middle of this week or on episode number 338. That is where you're going to get a more up-to-date commentary and thoughts on the situation. That all stated, we are still going to leave in what we've previously recorded, as a lot of it is still accurately reflecting our opinions on this matter, and we still believe that it was fairly well constructed as an episode. I'll do my best, though, to fit the interview into the existing episode in a way that is as seamless as possible and does not put that interview or anything else said in this episode in an inappropriate context. With that now stated, I feel as though we can proceed on to the remainder of this week's episode. We did our best to stay as fair and objective as possible. And I hope you guys appreciate that effort and appreciate what we have to present for you today. So here you go. Here is episode number 337 of the Indie Ball Report podcast. From chaos in Chicago to havoc in Hinchcliffe, we discuss it all on this week's episode of the Indie Ball Report podcast. We're back. Episode number 337 of the Indie Ball Report podcast, the only show that repeatedly falls on its face.
Oh, there's a lot more shows that do that, but I think we do it with admirable consistency.
See, that's the thing. I feel like people keep coming back in the same way you keep going back to watch, old train crashes or something like that.
Or new train crashes. We don't judge.
Did you see there's a new Excella train?
No, but I did see there was a police chase the other day and it ended in a car getting hit by a train. It was like a damn GTA scene.
And that's funny you say that because GTA scenes describe one of the teams we're talking about this week, and that would be the Jersey Jackals. Most of the sickos that listen to this show, rest assured you are a sicko or family if you're listening to this show, you kind of know the general consensus of what happened here. We're going to recap it. And we do have an interview from one of the main people involved in this mess, which would be Tommy Lawrence, the now former pitching coach of the New Jersey Jackals here. And I know on my end, and I believe Ryan on your end, we both reached out to John Hunt to get comments from him. My reaching out was a little bit later on, so if I receive something back before this episode comes out, I will throw an insert in the appropriate place. The incident, as we are referring it to, happened on Saturday after the game. New Jersey fired Tommy Lawrence, and shortly thereafter, Bert Gonzalez resigned his position as manager. Lawrence then began to launch into a tirade on social media aimed specifically at John Hunt and current team owner, but soon-to-be former team owner, Al Dorso. That's unrelated to this incident. That was a sale that was already in the works and is really just waiting to be finalized. But he launched into a social media tirade there. We'll link either the Instagram or Facebook posts with everything in there for you to go through at your leisure. But he lobbied a series of allegations directed at both, stemming from not addressing vermin in a player house that subsequently led to a fire in said player house, a lack of proper meals during the post game, stemming back to, as you'll hear in the interview, the preseason. This also included inappropriate actions with the team's social media account, and then it also extended to, which is probably the least talked about, but arguably most important part here, issues with insurance and filing player injury claims. It's a long stemming issue that apparently reaches back to the beginning of the year, so going on about 4 months now. So these are all the things that have been alleged. There have been more dumps every day, and it seems like it's going to continue to be a daily event here. In a way, Tommy Lawrence has almost become the indie ball version of the Zodiac Killer, as he constantly launches into clue dumps as to what's occurring, and you never know what's going to happen. It almost feels like we are stuck in some sort of weird C-level movie ripoff of Batman and the Riddler, but that is where we are at here.
I mean, the meaning is pretty clear. I'll give him that.
Yeah,
like he is consistent on the meaning for sure.
Yeah, he has some not so nice, I guess we'll call it, to avoid using any legal terminology, ways of describing both Al Dorso and John Hunt. Once you click on the links and take a look at the post yourself, you'll see exactly what we mean by that. Likewise, or in kind, Lawrence has been sent a cease and desist letter from Dorso's attorneys, so we will see how that winds up playing out, hence why this has become a litigious matter, and this is certainly not the end, but rather the beginning of that journey. We are going to wait to see how this plays out, and it does appear as though John Hunt is still with the team as of now. However, I've had conversations with some people that would be in the know that seem to believe that he was going to be on his way out the door regardless of this situation. So I imagine this is just ride out the next, really to the weekend with him. And then when the season's over, call it quits, or when this sale goes through in the beginning of September, probably be a clean house situation anyway. So that is the general overview of that. We will get to the Tommy Lawrence interview in just a second. That is a quick overview of what we're going to be looking at here, but we do have that for you, and it adds a bit of context and definitely shows you his frame of mind throughout all of this.
Yeah, I don't even know where to begin on it. I mean, I think it's just, well, first I'll admit, it's heavy. It's just for transparency's sake. Tommy's a guy that I've known for a few years. We haven't like hung out really, but like we've just talked. He's like one of the early connections I had back from the ALPB Roundup days. So we, we're familiar, and I want that to be clear. That said, I think it's also worth noting for this whole situation. This is, I think, very much one of those things where there's three sides of the story. There's Tommy's side. There's, probably John Hunt's side, I think we would call it. And then, and the truth somewhere in between, when you remove perspective from it. So, and, people's perception of other people and what they're doing. So, I think there's some important things just to keep in mind, I guess, throughout is my point. I don't want, especially because there is litigation involved, it to be said that there's, we heard one side of the story, that's all we need. I think, we can agree. I think we can agree on some facts. I'm not sure every side of this would agree, but I think you and I, because we have been tracking this issue a bit, would agree at least in part or in general to a few things that seem to really check out. And there's a couple other things where it's like, well, you kind of had to be there, but we can kind of judge off what we're hearing a little bit. So,
yeah, no, I would agree with that. I think there are some universal truths that I think every party involved would agree to. And I think it's an important thing to throw out here too, that just because we had Tommy on, or just because we may be agreeing with some of his points, does not necessarily mean that we agree with everything he's saying or that we're taking sides in this here. It just so happens that on that issue we would line up there. It's not supposed to be an endorsement of anybody. It's just we're trying to get as much information as we can, which is why I'd love to get, either someone from the Jackals side here or John Hunt himself on the show so that way we can get that other perspective as well to really add to the context here. And like I said, that's an open invitation really from anyone on the Jackals side that was present during all of this, because it does sound like when we get into the hot and heavy meat of this issue, there are a few consistent players here that that appear, I should say. And I will say one of the bigger challenges about discussing it, I know we're beating around the bush a little bit here, but it's important to say that this is a really kind of unwieldy story almost. It's tough to wrap your arms around it and really know where to begin with it.
Because it is something that's gone back for 3 years essentially, and beyond that, even how we could make this a story about how the Jackals ended up in Patterson, which goes back years before that. So there's that issue. There is also my familiarity with the Jackals organization from year one with Hinchliffe, whenever they started getting more intrigued and in the loop on what was going on there, and the difficulties encountered and the interactions with ownership and people who were in charge at the time. And then further, I guess it is just a hard one to fully grasp because there is such it's hard. It's one thing where it's like, so this happened. Well, why did this happen? And if you keep asking why, it goes back so far, and it goes back into so many other interactions that require backstory that it is hard to try to contain it while still giving people full context. So there's that. I'll also jump in and say, I reached out to John Hunt as well. John Hunt actually reached out or contacted me back pretty promptly, responding to my questions, and was, as forthcoming as he seemed he could be with it, because again, there's now litigation. So that further complicates the whole thing. So, I feel like how many times have I said that, there's litigation involved, so it's a complicated issue.
I feel like we're probably best served throwing the Tommy interview up first here.
And then we'll offer some follow-ups and some clarifications maybe as we get toward, on the back end.
Yeah, I feel like we're going to reference it a lot, so it's probably best to get that up and going now. So before we get into our thoughts on the situation, before we get into the real, heart of the discussion here, we're going to roll our interview with the former pitching coach in the Jersey Jackals, Tommy Lawrence. But before that, we are going to roll our interview with John Hunt, and then we will transition into our interview with Tommy Lawrence before getting on to the rest of the show as we originally intended. I'd also just like to take this opportunity to thank both gentlemen for coming on the show with us. It added a lot of appropriate context and really showed both perspective on the matter. And I think that's very important when dealing with precarious situations such as these. So now here's our interview with John Hunt, followed by our interview with Tommy Lawrence. We have another guest, and we have John Hunt of the New Jersey Jackals on the call here. So, how are you doing, John?
Doing pretty well on a trip up to Boston to see the Red Sox today, and then tomorrow to see the Jackals in the final 2 games of the season.
Yeah, can't beat that. A lot of baseball going on and a lot of exciting stuff that's happening. And I guess on that note, we'll hop right on into what has been the 2025 season. Obviously, it's been a very busy week and a very, complex week here. So that's the best way to handle this is just diving headlong into the situation here. And so if there's anything that, if there's a great starting point, I guess we'll start there.
Okay. The season's been crazy all year. We started off, the year having to wait a couple of weeks before we could get to our field, as there was a women's football team playing at Hinchliffe Stadium, the stadium that we share with high schools and other groups. So, the season started a little bit late. We've had crazy things like water main breaks that caused the stadium to be shut down for 10 days, and other things like that. So you guys tell me which direction you guys want to go.
I guess we'll start at the very beginning of the year. I think that's probably a good spot there. So at the start of spring training and everybody getting in, and how was the general atmosphere and vibe around the team at that point here? And how were things progressing at the beginning part of the spring?
Everybody came in, started working hard, and we were hoping for good things at the beginning of the year.
Yeah, I mean, everyone comes in and hope for the best and whatnot. And I mean, you go ahead and you put out the group you think can do the best for you. And I guess that's kind of the situation here. And what was kind of the thought process in bringing the guys in that you brought in, or the guys you kept around?
Well, as a general manager, most of my job has to do with sales, marketing, putting butts in the seats, bringing good promotions, that kind of thing. So the players that were chosen by our coaching staff.
Yeah, I was less talking about on-field staff and players. I was more talking about the people around the team in the front office and the off-the-field roles.
Yeah, and, in the office, we have a great staff. Some hardworking people that did a great job throughout the course of the season, putting together, again, good promotions and, some good groups in the ballpark.
Yeah. When it comes to, you mentioned, there was the delay with the stadium getting into it, I guess, because you were waiting on the football league to wrap up. What, I guess, if we're going off the field, what did the housing situation look like? Because at least that's something where it's hard to have a football game going on in the housing. So I guess that's still within your control. So how did that set up? How did that process look? Was there anything unusual, or did it go smoothly?
Well, we have a number of players that live locally and stayed at home, came into the ballpark from home. The team owns a 5,000 square foot mansion, big house. And when the guys came into the house, the coaches chose which players would come into the house. The house was in good shape. It was pretty clean. And they got the guys set up and ready to go at the beginning of the season.
Okay. So does that, I guess, that take care of basically everybody that needs housing?
Yes, the team took care.
Okay.
All Frontier leagues do. Some teams have host families. Some teams have hotels. And then, again, we had local players and some players that lived in the team house.
Okay. And I'm going to tack this on, Nick, before I kick it back to you, because we're talking Frontier League sort of policy, I guess it is. When it comes to, I'm less familiar with how the Frontier League operates it. I'm more familiar with the Atlantic League. So I'm just asking for my own clarity, honestly. When it comes to things like player meals, is that within, is that outlined in the rules that meals have to be provided to both teams by the home team? Is that how it works?
Yes, the league requires that we bring 70 meals, 35 for each squad, and the umpires get to eat as well, to the ballpark every night. So for post game, and then we give the players a pregame spread, just basic stuff to get them ready before the game. But every game, we do have sponsors who jump in and do a great job helping us with the post game meals.
Okay. Yeah, I was going to ask, is that generally handled through sponsor deals, or is that, it depend on the night type of thing, or, a split kind of?
Yeah, it was, it's not, some teams, they'll bring hot dogs and hamburgers from concessions every game. We were lucky that we had a number of sponsors who did a great job. And each series, there was always, you never had the same meal on any of the 3 nights of a series if you were the team coming in from outside.
Okay. Good to know. All right. I will, that was that line of questions just on the how logistics are looking. So Nick, I'll go back to you now that I got those things out of the weeds and out of my brain.
Yeah, and obviously the situation is still very fluid, and there's a lot going on around it. So whatever we can get. But as we start to progress into the season, when would you say things started to take a turn for the worst?
Well, there were issues on and off throughout the course of the season. I don't know that I can pick a specific time to say, okay, on this day, things turned bad.
Okay.
I would just ask then, when it comes to like the coaching staff and then specifically Tommy, was it immediately sort of oil and water thing, or, what were the first interactions like? Did it go smoothly at first and then it turned, or?
Well, this is an area because it is a legal situation. All I can say is there were threats made to myself and at least 2 other employees in the organization, physical threats. And that's about all I can say about that.
But that was before the most recent catalyst for the termination, right?
Well, yeah, the termination was the last one, yes, but there were some
but there were
previous to
prior
that.
with some sort of physical component.
Yes, there were some previous to that. I couldn't hear your question.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. So there were the prior instance with a physical sort of component to the confrontation before the events
of threat of physical.
Okay, got it.
Okay. So that it was just kind of, it just deteriorated throughout the year then essentially as things progressed.
Yes, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's a tough situation every which way. Obviously, on the field wasn't getting the results, and I don't know if that was part of it or not, or if it was just a culmination of a lot of things hitting at once. I do kind of want to ask a little bit about the maintenance of the field, because we've heard a little bit about that situation and the condition of the turf or the mound or things like that. And just out of curiosity, what is the typical protocol for maintaining that?
Well, I can't really get into the specifics of that at this point.
Okay.
But the field, all turf fields are supposed to be no metal cleats.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, that wasn't always the case on our field.
Yeah. And the reasoning behind the metal cleat, the reason why you have to go with a molded cleat as opposed to metal is what? Just the cleat may catch into it and just start to tear it up or something along those lines?
Basically, yeah.
Okay. All right. So it's equal parts not wanting to destroy the turf itself as it is wanting to maintain some sort of player safety, because I would imagine if a cleat gets caught as you're trying to do some sort of athletic movement, that could be a problem.
Hey, I guess that depends on the player, but the mounts were set up correctly at the beginning of the season and replaced throughout the course of the year. Okay.
Yeah, I just wanted to more or less clarify that there was a reasoning behind the rule. It wasn't just a rule for the sake of having a rule.
Well, yes, just about if not every team in our league that has turf anywhere in their stadium, it's generally no metal cleats.
Okay.
When it comes to, since again we're talking maintenance, I'm going to make it about my question, Nick. Sorry about it. But I'm going to go back to the house conversation, because there's been a lot made of that, and I know that is still being. There's going to be limitations on what you can talk about, and that's understood as I ask the question. With that, though, what we've gathered is somebody came out to address an issue with some sort of animal, raccoon, something at the house. Did they actually remove that animal from the house, do you know, or was it just sort of taking a look and going, yep, it's raccoons or what have you?
Early in the season, there was a report of some raccoons. I actually lived in the house previous to the season, never saw anything like that. I was the only one in the house, so I was never on that third floor level. Yes, an exterminator came out to the house, and I know that raccoons were removed from the house. And then I never heard anything more about that. But I can tell you right now, the fire itself, we've had investigators there, and the investigators have said that the fire was almost certainly not electrical. They are continuing their investigation. That's about all I can say about the house and the fire, though.
Okay. And Nick, do you have any?
Yeah, I was going to say, did they give you a timeline for when they're going to have a report done on that, or?
Well, again, the fire was just, last Thursday.
Yeah, so obviously.
At 4:45 in the morning, and I immediately went to the house after getting a call, and the players that had stayed behind from the road trip, that were either injured players or pitchers that didn't need to be used, within an hour they were in a hotel room and safe.
Okay. Yeah, that's one thing I don't think we've had really much conflicting information on that. The hotel part has been I think, pretty universally agreed upon, right, Ryan?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'd say so. So everybody was able to sort of be like, yeah, that was handled. um, Nick, do you have more thoughts or questions?
I do. I just need to figure out how to.
You and I usually get on the same page before these, but because this was sort of, thrown together in short notice, which thank you, John, for that. I appreciate you hopping on. We didn't get sort of mesh together what each of us wants to talk about here. So that's why I'm kind of keep kicking it back to Nick to make sure I'm not running over his interview here.
No worries.
Trying to think, I guess just a bit, who is the person that's in charge of handling a lot of the player insurance claims or the medical matters? I assume the trainer's involved in part of it, but I assume there's more of a front office staff that's involved with the paperwork end of it.
Yeah, we do have the insurance company. We have a member of our front office and the trainer are all involved.
Okay. So it's a kind of a joint effort among the front office and the medical team.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. I just wanted to clarify that bit. And then I guess the other thing that kind of immediately is coming to my mind here, I keep getting things that are popping up as we're talking, is there anyone else outside of, yourself and, the regular field staff and support staff that regularly would interact with the guys or anything like that? Who would be regularly going in the locker room and the player spaces?
Not that many people. Generally, it was me, the coaching staff, our clubhouse manager, and that was pretty much it.
Okay. Yeah, I was just curious because we're hearing about ticket staff people going around there, so I wasn't sure if that was a common thing or if it was just a one-off thing or if it was a thing that didn't even happen or what the situation was around that.
No, none of this had anything to do with my ticketing staff.
Okay. Ryan, you have a direction?
Yeah, I have a couple just clarifying ones. So when Tommy was let go last week at this point, yeah, it's Saturday. Okay, yeah. I'm putting it together. When he was let go, just out of curiosity, what was that like? Did he have a time frame to remove himself from the property and then remove himself from housing, or how did y'all have that set up?
Well, that's all part of the legals part of it, and it was just very basic, like any other. Let's say it's an employee at IBM. When they come to you and they say clean out your desk and you got to go home. Pretty basic.
Okay. All right, so there's a standard, I guess, termination protocol, we'll call it, though?
Yes.
Okay.
There's basically, at this point, a lot of things we've sort of gotten and then trying to put them in time order and seeing what we don't understand and what we only got one perspective on, obviously, is very important. But
understood.
So at least to summarize and make sure I haven't blatantly lost something obvious here. So it sounds like there may be some initial tensions, but you're mostly got off to a smooth start in your eyes. And then as season went on, there were a couple tensions rising moments, and then there were a couple, interactions and conflicts that had some physical threats involved. That brings us to the events of last week with the housing issue with the fire. Then I guess that sort of laid groundwork for a conflict about, was it about post-game meals that kind of set the, last week's specifics in motion?
I guess if you want to call it the final straw, maybe for people, we have the best combination of meals in the league. And again, I guess some guys, they come in late, they do whatever, they go get their shower first or whatever, but there's plenty of food. There were 3 occasions over the course of the entire season where food was either late by a few minutes after the game ended because the game went quickly or whatever, or there was not enough food given to us from the sponsor. That happened 3 times over the course of the year, and each time it was met with some sort of issue.
Okay, appreciate the clarification on that one. Just sort of making sure I have that down because that's definitely not everyone's what's being said publicly. I think you're probably well aware of. So from there, then that's where we get into the termination. And at that point, is that when Bert resigned as well?
Yes, he did choose to resign. He was not fired by me.
Were there, I mean, I don't know if that's not even relevant, so I'm not going to worry about it. When it comes to the day-to-day operation, the Dorsos throughout the season, how involved have they been? There's a lot of sort of finger pointing in the Al Dorso direction, and I think Nick and I have both expressed some confusion about how involved, the Dorsos are in day-to-day throughout the course of this year, and then especially recently. Is that...
Well, to me, those guys have been great owners, and they own multiple businesses, and do what's needed to take care of the team. That's about all I can say about them.
Okay. Nick, do you have any?
Yeah. How was the process of deciding that Joe Testa was going to be the manager for the remainder of the season there? What was the process behind that?
Well, he does know the guys. He does a great job with them, and it was just the perfect fit with such a short amount of time remaining in the season. Okay,
so it's more he was a veteran guy that had been around the team all year. So, given the fact there was only going to be about a week left in the season, he just fit the bill.
Yes, he knows the guys.
Okay,
and has done a great job with them since he took over.
Okay, I was just curious about how he was decided upon, and then. I guess the last thing I really have in regards to the players themselves are just, was the kind of overall feel been around the team the last few days here? Obviously, there's got a lot going on around them. So I'm curious to see how they feel at the moment or how things have been.
I feel like it's improving. It has been a frustrating season at times on the field as well. And it's, it is a lot better than it was, let's say, a week ago.
Yeah.
Everybody understands more about, what was going on, and the guys have stepped up and they played good ball and rallied around each other.
I have one more question, honestly, kind of in the same vein of, things happening and decisions being made after the firing last week. What prompted League Commissioner Steve Tashler to come in afterwards, or is that accurate that he was present, I guess, the day or two after?
Steve was close by at another ballpark. He had heard what happened, and he wanted to just come down and make sure everything was okay. That's the kind of guy he is.
Okay. Was there concern that the players wouldn't play or would not go out for the game the next day?
I believed that they would.
Okay. But was there concern?
I don't know that I would say I had that concern.
Okay. Fair enough.
Yeah.
Back to you. I think I've run a little dry here now.
I kind of feel like I'm in the same vein. I feel like a lot of the main points that we heard from the people we talked to and the other side involved in this, I feel like we addressed concerns that were brought up there, and they were fairly well answered. So I don't really have anything off the top of my head left to pull from here.
Okay. And again, I don't know if we're on recording or not recording, but
yep.
It is still a legal issue, and there are some, the things I can't talk about.
That's understood. We'll be sure to make sure that background is,
well
presented
stated.
As necessarily able to speak as freely as you might, and anything that you don't share isn't because you're trying to be evasive. It's more because there's ongoing legal matters.
Yes, that's good.
Okay. Nick, it is your podcast. Do you have any questions? I think because I've hit the end of the plot, at least in my notepad. So I think that I'm out of questions here. And John, you were kind enough to answer my email from earlier in the week, and that also had most of my sort of clarifying questions on things.
We thank you for taking the time, especially on short notice, to hop on and talk to us for a little while.
Yeah, thank you, John.
Gentlemen. I appreciate the opportunity. And thank you guys for being fair. I appreciate it.
All right. So we're back. Another interview. And this week, we welcome to the show a man that's been in the headlines a little bit. Tommy Lawrence, how are you doing?
I'm good. How are you guys doing?
Doing pretty good. Been looking forward to this and looking forward to having a conversation that I'm sure a lot of people are interested in hearing.
Yeah, it's been a pretty busy week. I would say for myself, past couple of days. So, especially with, like, just people reaching out and everything, and just kind of just trying to learn the situation that kind of happened. It unfolded this weekend, but kind of was a build-up throughout the whole year.
Yeah, so I guess that's a great entry point in here, and we'll start in the very beginning of the year. So obviously we know about everything that's gone on in the immediate, but where was this first warning sign, or is there more backstory to it before that first real issue point, we'll call it?
I would say, I think me and Albert Gonzalez, the manager, got there, I think around like April 15th or 16th. So like a little bit earlier before. And then the first thing that we actually did was go to the house, because we were told that the house was like ready for everyone to be moved into. Like all the beds were like made, had sheets on top of it. Everything was cleaned and all of that. So I posted those photos, by the way, on my Instagram on one of the slides. It was just like, those are the first photos that we saw when we first got there. And they told us that the house was all ready to be moved in. So kind of from the start, I was like, oh shit, like what am I getting myself into? Sorry for swearing, but
it's all good. Where was the house located? Is it like an older house, newer house?
It's a brick house. From the outside, it actually looked like really nice. When I pulled up to it, I was like, all right, this is going to be awesome. And then when you got in, it looked like it was from the 80s and probably hasn't been touched since like the 1980s.
Okay. So it could use a little bit of touching up, but
yep. It had to be like April 22nd or 23rd. Me and Albert, the manager, actually had to go to Windy City for a tryout, for the Frontier League tryout. So we went to that. And while we were there, because we were sending the pictures to Joe Testa, who was actually the acting manager right now, he was like, dude, we can't let this happen. So he ended up he likes cleaning and stuff. I know that for a fact. But he went AWOL, like cleaned the whole place. Like he did it all himself. It wasn't like the GM went in and did anything. Like he did it all himself. And then we got back, I believe it was on the 24th, the day guys were getting back. And they were still they had the sheets and pillows and blankets, like all like new. And like, that's about it. But nothing was like put on the bed yet. None of that. And then I know Albert probably spent, I know we were in Chicago and we went to the casino, and I think he won like $1,200, and I think he spent that $1,200 he won plus another probably like at least $1,000 of his own money like that same week. Like damn, all
that's indie ball as hell.
Yeah. So,
bro,
I mean, it's like from the start, it was like it was pretty crazy. And then spring training, our first like spring training game, like food didn't get there till probably like 3 hours later, honestly. Swear to God, because like John forgot to order it, which I think he blamed someone else, some guy named Tom that doesn't even work for us. That's who he was blaming on all the food stuff. And that happened just about every day during spring training. Like dead serious. Our food was either late or we barely had anything.
I'm sorry. I'm just gonna like throw things out. I hope I don't ruin your flow, because I trust that you know.
No, you're fine.
So if I have a question, I'm just gonna throw it out there because I will forget to ask. This might be, and if the answer comes later, you just let me know. But the thing that sticks out to me, why is John the one ordering food?
I know he set something up with our clubby, was really good. It's just that he didn't have they didn't set him up for success there. Like this guy was worked for like the Dodgers for a while, which I don't know if it's a clubby that usually orders the food or not, but usually it's someone within the front office.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's front office orders, clubby sets it up, but we don't need to get in the weeds. That's on me.
Yeah. So I know for a fact it was John who set it up through like sponsorships with food and stuff. That's I think. I don't think they ever really paid for the food. I think they were just hoping we were just sponsored by every meal. If that makes sense.
Yeah, that tracks. So spring training, I think it was day one. Like the spring training.
Yeah.
Yeah. So and then opening night, we're playing Quebec. Jalen Long is our starter, which after this start dominated for the rest of the year. John Hunt, I don't know, for some reason, he was also on the mic during the games. And after this first maybe 3 games, I think Testa had an intervention with the Dorsos about not letting John on the field, even though we had an on-field girl already. But John got on the mic 25-minute delay. It's supposed to be like a 6:35 start. We started like 7 o'clock.
Any reason for the?
Oh, John just wanted to be on the mic and just introduce everybody.
Oh, okay.
And this is opening night. Not even the team intros. It was more. Oh, actually, did the team intros on the field too as well. Like at the end of it, but it was like a 25-minute introduction, which our starter Jalen Long, who ended up being an all-star, gave up like 7 runs in the first inning. So our season start, I feel like it just went absolute shit, like right there. And that's just from him just being on the field. Like he's like his job, and he did it for a couple more times, and then that's when Testa had an intervention with the Dorsos to make sure that John never got on the field again, which after we did that, we went like on like a 5 or 6-0 streak at home. Obviously, the season wasn't that good, but
yeah,
if you're treated like this, it's pretty hard to play because I feel like we got to win on the field and like as soon as we walk to the stadium. So we had that. And then as we're going, just throughout the season, there's like a doubleheader one time. There's no food in between games of a doubleheader, which is not just us either. It's also the other team that's in there too. And they have no food as well. And then there's one time I was after the game, I think like the video I posted on my Instagram with the one thing of pasta and the garlic bread was the day after the fire when we got back from a 12-hour road trip, which is crazy. The one time before this, there's a minimum amount of food, so I yelled at John, and I got suspended for a game for yelling at him about, supplying enough food. So maybe if we ate right, we could play better on the field, which I feel like goes kind of hand in hand in a sense, because obviously these guys don't make a lot of money. They're not killing it, so like anytime you can get free food, and they're going to want to eat it, especially if we're supposed to get it after a game. So that was like the first time I got blown suspended for that. And then, there's so many things. Even at the beginning, like me and Bert were going through the house. That first day, I went into a crawl space. I came out. Bert went back into this crawl space, and as he opens the door, there was a raccoon right there. So that's when we found out the first day we were there, April 22nd. Was the first day we knew raccoons were there. And I know for a fact we texted the Dorsos and John a million bajillion times. They never ended up getting like an exterminator to come to the house or anything. And then, actually, no, I think that they got an exterminator come. He wanted to assess the situation. There was like a mother raccoon and like 3 or 4 of her babies up there in the attic. Never came back with traps or anything. So one of the players that lived around the area had a trap. So we did set a trap in there. We did trap the raccoon.
Okay.
So we had to let it back out in the backyard, and
then it just went right back.
Yeah, and then it ended up getting out or at least we thought it got out towards the beginning of like August, maybe end of July.
Okay,
but we don't know because obviously I wasn't going in there. I don't think any of the guys were there.
It's not your responsibility to go after a wild raccoon.
And 2 people living in the room next to the raccoon was, and I think it was just shit and piss just in there and like the fumes from it because they both ended up like they left their stuff there. They would only come there if they had to be in there and like would just sleep in the living room or just sleep at their house. Yeah, it's just crazy. We ended up like just shutting the door because it smelled so bad in their room, which wasn't even where the raccoon was.
So I know we got a lot of people who are probably tuning on this because we have gotten a lot of people who are like, we are excited to hear about this more. But there's also a lot of people who have, no background on this because either, they don't follow you or they are just busy because it's life. But so I want to roll back a little bit. So we'll just roll into, because Nick and I have been pretty in depth with our thoughts on the Jackals organization being disorganized. So we don't need to rehash everything on that to give a background, but I can at least skip us ahead and land us at like probably a week back where that house had a fire. Cause you mentioned it when it came to the food the next day, but I think it's important for listeners to understand. So y'all were coming back from down east, correct?
Yeah, we were down east. No, actually,
Okay.
the day I think the fire happened, we were in down east. It was a Thursday.
Okay. Oh, that's right. Right.
It was like that morning. So, I mean, I woke up with like 12 missed calls and like 5 text messages from Bert. He's like, "Hey, you're probably not going to want to ignore this call. Like, the house is on fire." Which that's what I woke up to. So I called him. I'm thinking like I don't know. I honestly I ran outside because I thought I was in a fire because that's the first thing I saw. And then I called him, and that's when I found out like where the raccoon was.
Yeah.
Like that whole area is where it like if we didn't have that door shut just because it smelled like shit sometimes.
Yeah.
The fire would have spread throughout the entire house. And like I know one player, Jordan Scott, lives on that floor, and like he's lucky he just got up and got out of there. That was like all the way on the top floor. And then it's all crazy.
Were there smoke detectors and all that kind of thing?
No fire alarms were going off because one of the guys just woke up and they just smelled smoke, and they heard like an electrical spark. That's what how one guy kind of put it. That's what they just kept hearing over and over. It was like an electrical spark. So that was the Thursday morning. It happened like 5 whatever in the morning. So then that's when we had the bus ride back. Whatever, we get back early as can be in the morning, probably like maybe 8 or 9 in the morning. We get to go to the hotel, and then that night, then we obviously have a game that day. So I go to the hotel. I hadn't even gone to the house yet because I was just like, I'm tired. I want to go sleep. I can't sleep on bus rides anyway, so I was like, I just can't. I got to get home. So I went into the hotel, passed out, came back. We had our game, and after the game, there was legit. Now imagine we have no house to go home to cook food. We just got back from a road trip, and there's one thing of pasta and garlic bread. Everything just in the house just got roasted, and I'm already pissed off at like that part because I know that house for sure was not up to code at all. So then I went out to the field, out of the clubhouse, and I screamed for John Hunt to come into the locker room, and then I went nuts on him again because it's just so much disrespect towards like the players and everything. It's just, and I was lucky my whole career where I was with the Boulders. They treated me very, very well. I was with the High Point Rockers. I got treated like I felt like a big leaguer at that point. When I was here, I felt like I got treated better in high school, honestly.
Sure.
And so and it's more so too, like if this guy keeps having a job, it's only going to get worse and worse every single year because he's going to be able to get away with more and more shit. So I figured if they're going to fire me, it's okay for me to expose everything that they're going to do too. So,
okay.
And before we fully get to that, did you say this wasn't your first? Because you said you were suspended by the team once, so this wasn't the first time you guys had issues. Okay.
Yeah. June 14th. That's when I was suspended.
Okay.
All right. Just trying to get a timeline in our head here.
Yeah.
Right.
So that goes down. All right. And then so you get back from the fire. There's obviously an expectation of food because I believe, and I won't speak to the Frontier League's rules because I don't know them like the back of my hand. Like I know the Atlantic League rules pretty well, but I think it's pretty much set that it's expected that players will have a meal waiting. Now, there's a lot of wiggle room obviously within there, just so people know. But I think the expectation is at least enough for everybody to eat post game on both teams. And with the added understanding of like, you have a lot of guys who just lost everything and don't have any food now because they no longer have a house. So that starts that emotion. The conflict then starts. And then how does that wrap up? And then how does that lead into what happens after that?
So the conflict ends in the clubhouse.
Okay.
Yelling at him. And then as me, Bert, and Testa were all leaving together, John Hunt came up to me and wanted to go shake my hand and was like, oh, you're right this time. And when he said this time, like now this is the second time I'm going to flip out on you. When he said this time, I was like, yo, are you serious right now? And I just went nuts again. And then there was a ticket sales guy that was also there. I don't even know. I don't even know who he really is. And I don't even know why he butted in. But he was like, then he started coming. He came at me and Testa. He was like, oh, who are you anyways? Like, you played minor league baseball. He's like, I made it to the show. I sold tickets for the Yankees. I swear to God, he said this. I made it to the show. I was like, dude, I could sign up for that job if I wanted to. So like right there,
it's a wild take. Okay.
It is, yeah.
He also
Especially for a chat. Right.
He said to Testa, he was like, "Oh, you have 900 career strikeouts in the minor leagues. What does that even mean?" Like, dude, like even just saying that stuff is just wild to me. Like, you work in baseball.
Yeah.
You're supposed to know what baseball is going on. So like that right there. Now you got my blood boiling. So like, I'll be honest. I got fired for making threatening remarks, which I probably told them like, I'm gonna you up. Like, all right, I'm a guy and I'm pissed off. I'm probably gonna say stupid shit. Especially being like a competitor and an athlete, and then you want to come at my career.
I think personally, I'm not questioning you getting fired because, like, I have seen dudes fired for less. So it's hard to argue it because it's up to the team, right? So, like, whatever. They can technically fire you for whatever they want, and you gave them plenty of reason. But, like, that's why I'm making sure we go back and we do hit the details of, like, what led up to this, because that's pretty key in this. Because there's, of course, multiple sides to everything, and I do. Part of it, I think, is important to understand because when the headline is Tommy flips out on John and then John fires him, it's like, well, that's a 1-to-1. We can all see ourselves going off on our boss, and then our boss being like, "Good news, you're free tomorrow because you're not working here anymore." But I do think it is at least worth coloring in all these details of the lead up and the frustration. And the point that, and I don't want to speak on your behalf, but it does seem like a lot of frustration was also on behalf of the guys, both on behalf of them and also the fact that you as coaches, you bring these guys in, and then when they're being mistreated, it feels like you then pulled them into a situation where they would be mistreated. So it adds some added bad feelings. Yeah. Is that kind of fair, or am I a little bit off?
100%.
Okay.
Like for me, like I felt like, I don't know. And even too, like you grow accustomed to these kids too, and then it's like you see what they're going through. And I just think about like, I mean, rest my mom's soul, but if I was their age and I texted my mom like a photo of that house, I think she would have came down there, and I wouldn't have been the one to get on that turn. It would have been her flipping out. Like, how can you put someone in these situations?
I can see it. Yeah. With you getting fired, how'd that situation go down?
So it was after the game on Saturday. So it wasn't even before. It was after the game.
Oh, okay.
I just got out of the shower, and like three guys, like Tessa comes in, and he's like, "Yo, there's like 5 people waiting for you with John." I was like, "Oh Jesus!" So I just got done showering, put my clothes on, and it was just me and Bert, and Tessa wasn't in there, and then like John, the ticket sales guy, some other dude, and then they actually brought an armed guard, which I thought was kind of insane. I don't know. Now, my take on it was anytime there's like a brawl on the field, the cop isn't supposed to go on the field. And I also thought there was no weapon. What they said to me was in there, like, hey, on behalf of the Dursos, the Jackals, and me, John Hunt, you're officially terminated from your role as pitching coach of the New Jersey Jackals. So I was like, all right, you'll see, John. And I just took it because I'm not going to argue here. They got a guy with a gun. We closed the office door, opened the office door open. Yep, all the guys on the team were sitting outside waiting. And I came out. I said, I'm fired. And as soon as John walked by, they all started screaming at him, and they followed him out of the clubhouse, onto the field, screaming at him outside. They were all going crazy. And then inside of the meeting, sorry, I go back and forth. There's so much that happened. Inside of the meeting is when they told Bert, hey, make sure you control your players. That's from the commissioner. And then that's when Bert was like, you're firing Tommy, and then I'm resigning. So that's when Bert resigned right in the office right there.
Okay.
And then all the guys went nuts on him, crazy.
Yeah. All right. So you didn't have any real back and forth with Hunt during this, and then it spilled out from there?
That was when I got fired?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. I didn't even say nothing at all. I just went. I just started packing my stuff. That's the guy. All the guys on the team, all the players.
Okay.
And then they were all, honestly, half of them started packing up their stuff, and they were gonna they're all gonna leave. And then I think Testa, we were told Testa like to stay because Testa was gonna walk too.
Okay.
But we told Testa to stay because if we had no coaches and no players, or like if they didn't play, they would be suspended this year and next year if they left.
Okay.
That's what they were told. So Testa was gonna walk too, and then Testa ended up staying.
Okay, and then the suspension thing that came from up top, so that came from the league level down.
I believe so. I know.
Okay.
I think John came in and said if you guys quit, you'll be put on the suspension list, and then you'll be suspended for next year as well.
Okay, and was there any Frontier League official that was a part of this, or was this just strictly team people and then whoever the armed individuals were?
Just team people and armed individuals.
Okay.
I think Tassler came on Sunday the next morning and talked to all the guys.
Okay.
Okay. And then one of the follow-up I have on it is when this went out onto the field, was there anybody else on the field there, or was it just something you really weren't paying attention to?
At that point, I was just packing up my stuff.
Okay.
Because they gave me 30 minutes to get out of the locker room and then 30 minutes to get out of the hotel after what the game got over at 10 o'clock at night. So
okay. So they kind of threw you on your ass at midnight.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Trying to what's on your mind, Nick?
I'm trying to just I'm piecing together everything we're hearing now and everything I've heard from around. So in the days following you being let go, what's generally been the response that you've gotten both from guys that were in the room and then guys that are whether in the league or just around indie ball as a whole? What's that response kind of been like?
Like a lot of people are like, thank you for sticking up for the guys. Like, I don't want to give out names and stuff, get guys in trouble or anything, but
yeah,
no, I understand.
Yeah,
you're good. Yeah.
Even to like every guy on the team was like, I've gotten messages from just about everyone like, yo, thank you so much for sticking up for us. Like, even not now, just throughout the year, like it means a lot. And then I've had like a bunch of messages from different guys. Like, it's unbelievable that you get fired after going through all of that stuff. Because like even too, like the guys that come and see and are on the back end of like being inside the clubhouse over there, I'll be like, yo, what the hell is this? Like if you look in the outfield, dude, our cage is it's a blow up cage that's on the ground, deflated.
I mean, we'll say most of what I hear about the setup down there is from opposing players as well.
It's crazy
because they got no reason to be quiet about it. You know, their job ain't on the line and talking about it, so I can vouch for it from out third party sources at least.
Yeah.
All right, so you have sort of you've been kind of putting out a lot of like sort of day by day putting out issues that you've had with the organization with John Hunt. So what I guess I'll say, like, what are a couple of, like, what do you think people should know? What is the year end goal with this? Because I know that is, well, I mean, I'll cards on the table with it. Like, I've been talking to a lot of people too, just confirming stuff and like running back and forth. And a lot of people are like, Tommy, like, yeah, like having the back of the boys. But a lot of people are like, not sure what the end game is here. They're watching closely. They're like, I'm going to get, post alerts for Tommy now, but they're not sure what the end game is. So there's probably a lack of clarity on a lot of people's part who aren't like, actively talking to you. So what is your thought process at this point?
I mean, honestly, I kind of want to just expose how the Dorsos are as an ownership, because if they're doing that to us, I'm like, all right, they probably take care of South Six a little bit better. But I know for a fact back in the day they didn't take care of South Six back, like in 17 and 18. When I was in this league, I know they were treated like shit, and I know they have a bad reputation. And then I don't think John Hunt should ever GM or be in baseball ever again. And I'll ruin him. I don't care. And if that means that I don't get to be in baseball, in professional baseball, that's fine, because I'm more so. There's like just the lack of respect for the players. Like I was once in their shoes where I didn't come from money, so everything I made from if I made my $1,200, that's all the money I had. I'm sure some of these guys are like that too. So when there's no food and you're treated like shit, like, and you're supposed to be a professional, it bothers me. And I'm hoping if maybe I do this here, maybe there's other places also that treat players like absolute garbage, and then someone else speaks out, and then people are called out, because I think this is kind of what happened with. I'm not saying I'm trying to make a salary like $35,000 a year, like minor leaguers are. Like, I'll take my $1,200 playing independent ball all day, but just treat us right. And I think it's kind of like how the minor leaguers were. Like, someone just spoke out, they got their way. Like, we deserve good housing and everything, and good food. Like, there's still a chance that we can, make it to the big leagues. So, like, why not take a risk on us? But it's just like, they just treat us like shit.
Yeah, well, even so, and we'll actually be talking about another one of these organizations on the same episode. But even so, I think I'm just going to interject my own point here, just for clarity on listeners. But it's not even about whether you're going to the show or not, whether you have a shot. It's about they build a business around what you guys do. Yeah, and I think a lot of organizations. I'm not saying this is the mindset of the Jackals necessarily, but I have not worked with them closely enough to say this, but I've seen with other organizations this sort of attitude of, well, I'd be playing baseball for free if I could get that to be my job. So these guys should just feel lucky. And it's not that you guys don't feel lucky, but it is like, yeah, but you also do need to make a living, and you do deserve to be treated with respect. So I think a lot of the time it's thinking about the players last, when if there were no players, there would be no business. So there's sort of a massive blind spot that some of these organizations have. So I just want to hop in and be like, it doesn't really matter if it's possible you can go to the show or not. I mean, we all want to believe it's possible, but also, yeah, if we're just looking at the day to day, if you're not treating guys right and they say, you know what, we're out of here, well, you're going to have a tough conversation with people walk through the gate. As I believe the Gastonia Honey Hunters found back in the day, when I think the Atlantic League had to bail them out so they would go out in the field. So back to what we're talking about here now with so there's two things, because when it comes to, we're pointing fingers, right? And I will also say, and I think we're going to say this in the lead up to this also, Nick and I, this is now active litigation, it seems. I know that there was a legal threat sent your way, which we can get to if you want to get to it, but why is it you are really pointing the finger at two particular people, and it's Dorso and it's John? And why is it, what leads you to believe it starts and ends with those two? And I'll follow up on the Dorso point, because as we've come to know, as it hasn't quite been announced yet, but like Dorso is moved on at this point. They just own Sussex, and New Jersey seems to be under new ownership at this point. I don't know where they are in the handoff necessarily, but you still are bringing them up. So I'm trying to now paint the picture of where is it, like, how does this all come together, where that is what the blame is looking like, if that made sense. It was a weird way for me to phrase that, but hopefully you followed.
No, yeah. So I know they have the team until the 8th of September. And then that's when the team officially gets transferred to the new owners. But kind of like, I mean, it comes from, I know for a fact, all year, I've seen it. Joe Testa and Bert were texting the Dursos and John Hunt about the raccoons and even to like the mound situation. That's even crazier. Like, there's people, the weekend that we went to Molded, we had like a bunch of guys, like we had 3 guys go down, which is crazy. And just, I mean, they didn't do anything to the mounds. They didn't put pellets down. There was no sand down. Like, if you look at the kid Murdy Matt that pitches for the Brockton Rocks, he does like the bullpen reviews. Yeah. Look at the bullpen. That's what the game mound looks like too.
Yeah.
I promise. So it's like, there's so many different little things that it's from the ownership and the GM. The GM's supposed to get the job done, and the ownership's supposed to help him do that. So those are the two. I know for a fact we express everything that we need, what it needs to be done to make this a more professional baseball team and more professional organization, and they didn't listen to any of it.
And the issues like the mound, that was just like a day one thing that just has lasted the whole way through the year?
I mean, the one piece of turf?
Yeah, the turf mound, the whole on-field issues.
Oh, that was all year long.
Okay.
Actually, so, and this might line up pretty well, because we had issues. I remember when I was the brief time I was in Lexington, day one, new turf field, really not fully even. I mean, they literally were putting rubber pellets in it morning of opening day. And, we decided to, go with, oh my gosh, I'm going to blank on his name. Help me, Nick.
Oh, wait, was it JJ Hoover?
Yeah, it was JJ Hoover. He put Big Hoove out there, and he had worn a hole in that mound within 5 innings. So, what was interesting was, and this is where it comes back to you, we were told at the time, you guys need to talk to, because I mean, I wasn't involved with it, but what we heard was get the people who are in charge talking to the Rockers. They've been taking care of the same mound that Lexington has, and it seems to be the same kind of mound that a lot of these teams have. Yeah. And so, I mean, this might be hard to answer. I don't know what you saw at High Point versus there, but like looking at how like the field and the mound was treated at High Point versus Jersey, were there differences that stood out?
Oh my God, night and day. That's not even. I forgot his name. Oh, he was a nice dude over with the beard. If there was one thing that was wrong anywhere, he was there in 3 seconds. It like that. Like, hey, this is wrong. Boom, he was there and he fixed it.
Okay.
And I don't know what he did with the mounds there. He held them up because I know you're allowed to use metal cleats there because you're a professional baseball player.
Fair. Okay. Interesting on that point. The other one I had was,
like our
going
pitch clocks never worked.
Oh yeah.
We never had pitch clock once this year.
It was just not playing with it.
Yeah, at our place there's no pitch clock.
Just Jersey rules. All right, word. Good to know. If I'm watching it, it's funny. Okay, no offense. Well, you're not with team anymore. I mean, once y'all were out of the race, I saw a lot less games that took place in Jersey because, unless you're playing a team in the playoff race, it wasn't necessarily pulled that way. So I didn't even clock the fact that there was no clock, honestly. So interesting. Jesus. All right. This is backing up a little bit just for my no knowledge. Did they send somebody out to deal with the raccoon? Sorry if you said that earlier and you might have.
Yeah, they sent an exterminator out.
Okay.
But he only came just to assess the situation.
Oh, interesting. Okay. Is that Nick? Did you have anything else on that? I thought you had some tidbit about the exterminator, but I don't know if you have anything else.
All I had on that was I talked to one person that said that there was an exterminator that was sent out there and that they had a receipt for the exterminator. I didn't know the extent of it. I didn't know how many times, and I didn't know it was done, just that there was an exterminator at some point.
And money was exchanged. Interesting. Okay.
But they didn't take the raccoons, though.
Yeah, okay. I could see that possibly. I mean, personally, I've had exterminators out the houses I've been at before, and they don't. I feel like the first time is usually an assessment.
And then they come back usually with traps and they set sign up, but there was no coming back.
Oh, okay. Nick, I know that we're shorter on time at this point, but I'm wondering, do you have anything else that you want to hit before we?
I had two things that I wanted to get to. The first was, do you think it was more on some issues? Obviously, neglecting certain things is just a management issue, but do you think the finances of the team played any part in all of this, that they would have gotten to it if they had the money, but they don't have any money, so they were just like, yeah, we'll ignore it and hope it doesn't go bad?
Well, that would go back on the Dursos, which I feel like they have money because they own the state fair group. So
yeah, it's just a matter they don't want to invest in at least that team.
They didn't put anything into it.
Okay.
Like, we didn't have travel bags. We didn't have.
So just a lot of
by the middle of the year, we had no more BP shirts, no more BP shorts. Like, I honestly went into the team store and had to take hats to give to our players that we signed that were new.
So it just seems like they're neglecting things that have just kind of basics in professional baseball.
Yeah.
Okay. And then the only other thing I wanted to get to here is, and it relates back to a conversation I had with someone at a ballpark earlier this week, which was, they were curious at the method you chose to get all this out with, that you chose social media as opposed to trying to better organize, because they were saying, similar to you, how it's the bigger story here is the way guys are treated, sports in America, and the just general perception around athletes, particularly minor league athletes, and the way they're treated here. And they were curious that you chose to go the route of going social media as opposed to trying to organize and then maybe trying to get into a paper or go through a news company.
I just honestly just thought I had a pretty good following on Instagram, and I know I have the right people that follow me that I can send it to. So I just kind of wanted to do it on my own, and honestly, I just wanted to get it out there. I thought it was just crazy in the fact that like it's just crazy to me that I don't have a job in baseball right now, and John Hunt does.
Been there, brother.
It's just I'm like, what the hell? I could be a better GM than him, and I will go into it blind. That's how I feel as myself. And then there's some comments underneath all the posts that say like, "Oh, this isn't the first time he's done this." So I know he's with the Wilmington Sharks before. So
yeah,
I don't know.
Yeah, it's and it's an involved situation here where every turn is kind of crazier than the next. And it's difficult to really, I guess, summarize everything because there's so much going on.
Yeah, it's also a combination of big personalities, and you see also, the difference between, the different mentalities of I do feel like front offices in general tend to feel like they know better, and when you bring that to them, even in a casual manner, it tends to be not overly well received. Not 100% of the time. Sometimes people are very receptive, and then to kind of turn up to 11 with the intensity that came from the situation with the fire, the food, with the mound, with the field and the stadium around the league. I mean, just reaching out to source on this story. I mean, I was hearing stories about, guys being stuck pregame, not being able to go out and do warm-ups because they're wrapping up a cricket match on the field. So like, this is not, I want to also make clear, this is not one or two incidents throughout the year. This is sort of a day-to-day way they practice business.
Even too, it's like, I try to do it nice. And when you do it nice, things were getting done. So honestly, the last time I got suspended, I yelled at him, but the food started getting a little bit better for about a month.
No.
And then it went down again. So then I had to yell at him again.
Allegedly, for the sake of legal. Any lawyers listening?
Yeah.
Allegedly yelled at him, and allegedly the food got better.
Yeah.
Who's to say?
Yeah. Ryan, your point on personalities did bring one thing to my mind, because I've only interacted with Al Dorso a couple of times, very briefly. So I understand, like, he's a very intense person. You could just kind of tell, at least what I could tell from limited interactions. How often did you interact with Al, and like, what was the kind of sense you got from him?
I never really got to interact with him. It was more of like with Mike.
Okay.
And it was very like I think I seen Al there one time.
Okay.
And I saw him yelling at John, which I thought was funny. During spring training.
Yeah.
And then I think Mike I've only seen like twice there. But now since I've been fired, they've been there like every day.
Interesting. That does tend to happen.
Yeah.
You know what's also interesting is I know for a fact now everyone's getting their bills repaid, their medical bills repaid. And all of a sudden, right away, they needed all the insurance stuff right away too. After I got fired, so I'll just say, as long as the boys are getting treated a little bit better, then I think I did my job.
Yeah, I mean, we should wrap up, but real quick, so we didn't even touch on that. What was your feelings on how some of the injuries were being handled?
Oh, that's another. Yeah, that's just they weren't handled. Like, there's one kid that's I know for a fact is in Massachusetts right now. Still, I think he's like still on the DL. But he went home and had to go get checked out by his own doctor because they wouldn't do anything here. And he needs Tommy John surgery. I know that. Like the MRI,
so
100%. So like if he had this surgery 2 months ago, now he might be able to come back and be ready for the season. Now he's probably not going to be ready for the season.
Yeah, he's down for a year and he's got to get a job after that too. Yeah. I mean, and again, for those who don't know, usually it is a fairly urgent thing because you don't want a guy hanging out on your workers' comp. You don't want things getting worse. You know, once a guy is injured and there's something that needs to be done, you try to move him pretty quickly, get him to appointments, things like that. And honestly, give him a full regimen, because the moment, speaking from a business perspective and the way a lot of owners feel, I'm sure, is once he has a regimen, he has to follow of appointments and treatments and exercises and all that, and he needs to be places at certain times. Like, then if it, it gets any worse, or he doesn't follow, because he's not following those instructions, like, you can kind of start to like wipe your hands of all that. And it's odd. It struck me as strange that there would be such a delay, because I've seen the urgency from the operations side of like, all right, let's get that rolling. Let's do this. Let's get him tracked and figured out. Cause like, again, from his perspective, just trying to be cheap and viewing players as commodities, if you would like, you look at it and you go, well, I don't want that guy just hanging around, not having doctor's appointments. He could be doing anything at that elbow, and I'm going to have to pay for it. So, that definitely caught me as interesting. And it depends on how you want to look at it. If you want to say it's malice, that's very concerning. But also if it's just like mishandling, still very concerning from the sake of looking at like, wow, like from a health perspective, it's terrible for players, but also first from a basic operations perspective, it's very, you can't be messing that up. That's very strange.
Yeah. Yeah. That pisses me off probably the most is the injury stuff too. All of it. It's just crazy. I can't believe it. That's more. I think the motto our saying this year was, how can it get worse? And it did. Yeah. And it did. I swear to God, I say it every once in a while. Can it get worse? It can't get worse. And it got worse. I even got fired. That's how worse it got.
Don't tempt the indie ball gods with a good time, man.
Yeah.
I think I said that in Lexington probably 2 days before I got fired. I think as I watched the Ducks hang a 24 spot on my guys, and then I was like, this week can't get worse. And then I was unemployed in Kentucky. So, I'm with you there, man. And I feel a lot of your pain here. So it was good to catch up with you on all this and to get some background and give people some awareness of it. I mean, there are two sides to everything, but it's good to at least get yours and see, what led to all this. And then, again, I'm trying to prevent knowing there's two sides to at least prevent it from just being, Tommy yelled at the GM and then he got fired, because I do think there is more to that. I think it's important that people understand that, and then they can make their own decisions on how they feel.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think it's well deserving. I would do it again. I don't have any regrets yelling at him.
So 10 out of 10 for yelling at John Hunt. Understood.
No, I appreciate you hopping on and doing this, because it definitely added a lot of needed context, I think, because we've been looking to fill in a lot of gaps, and there's a lot of stuff where you just hear like the big kind of tent pole part of it, and you're like, yeah, but like what else goes on around it? Because it's not just that.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, absolutely. Sorry, Nick, that was well said. So I just want to say thanks for summing it up better than I could have. Appreciate you.
Yeah, no problem. So I guess if there's anything else you want to add, now would be the time to do it. And take the floor.
I think I got it all out, honestly.
Yeah.
I mean, you made your pitch for next GM of the New Jersey Jackals, so you really hit all the points. Yeah,
definitely.
I'll let him know.
Exactly.
All right, thanks, Tommy. I appreciate it.
Appreciate you taking the time to do
You're
this.
welcome.
All right, so we want to thank Tommy for hopping on the program. He took some time out of his day to give us some clarification, add some extra details as he saw it to the situation here, and gave us a lot to marinate on, certainly there. And as we're recording this episode, we're not even an hour removed from talking with him. So it's still very fresh in our minds as well. On that note, we've gone through the preface, we've gone through the interview now. It's a really unwieldy situation here, which is very delicate, obviously. What are your initial impressions of the situation, and then any takeaways you have now after talking to Tommy?
So I mentioned during the interview itself. My concerns and disagreements and where it really got my interest in this situation is not that Tommy was fired. Every business is different, and then once you get into baseball, there's even more variation. But there are, I think, few there are a few organizations I can think of in at least indie ball that wouldn't have fired Tommy for the outburst and what was said. So, there's probably a few that would have been like, yeah, happens. But I think it's not surprising that he's fired. But again, my main thing is, how did we get here? Where do we go from here? How did this all play out? What is, the cause and effect of this? What is, and then what is true? Because so much is being said. It's like, what is true? What is not? Trying to get down to the bottom of it. Right. So, there's a lot. There's some things that also stood out in the way of like, that is kind of business as usual. And that's not saying it's good or bad. He's mentioned guys paying for housing. That's not unusual. You could argue it should be. You could argue that paying for the type of housing that they're getting and for the number of guys living in one house, that's a problem. I'm right on board. When you come to conversations, talking about, I'll get into specifics because I have actually thoughts on like each individual thing, but in general, this is a mix of things that are not unexpected from a team and a mix of things that, are a little bit more out there and a problem, and all of which I think combine to sort of create the situation that we're in here. And then when we talk about the causes of it, that's a whole other can of worms as well. What are your general thoughts here, I guess, before we dig into a few specifics, I guess?
I should say how I kind of came across all this. I got a text from someone on Saturday night saying, all hell is breaking loose at Hinchcliffe. It wasn't from someone that was there. I should say that too, to protect people here. But I was like, oh, that's interesting. I wonder what they mean by that. I'll get to it later because I saw it late. And then I think, was it you that sent me house fire pictures? Yeah. And so then Ryan sent me pictures of a house fire, and I was like, oh, that must be what they're talking about. And then I went ahead and got back onto the text message, and then I got the full details on, midday Sunday. And so initially when I got that, I was like, whoa, what happened here that this just escalated out of nowhere? Mm-hmm. And I was like, there's got to be more to it than this. I assumed that there was going to be some type of screen match or something, and then that's how it just went to hell, and then Bert's standing by his guys and all that. And, as the stories unfolded, and then as I was talking to more people, I was starting to think, like, I really honestly don't know what I was starting to think. I was like, there is a lot going on here, and there's a lot more to unpack. Mm-hmm. And I know it's not really adding much to the conversation, but I was really kind of like more just in discovery mode than processing mode, if that makes sense. Whereas like, I don't want to rush to a conclusion here because you could tell this is going to be sensitive. And admittedly, I was kind of shocked by the dump we got from Tommy with everything. And it was like Martin Luther's 95-point thesis. Yeah. Where it's just 17, 18 different things he runs through, from there's guards in the locker room to there's no food here to there's the raccoon in the house chewing through wires and everything there. And then I got people calling me and telling me, like, we have a receipt for that. We had an exterminator come out to the house, mm-hmm. and now allegedly he comes out one time and he's just like, yeah, you got like a family of raccoons there, you're gonna want to do something about that, and then just dips and nothing else gets done. I'd love to get more information on that. Realistically, where I am now at this stage with all that I know as of 9:30 on Thursday night, the 28th of August, I would say I have a lot more. I really want the other side of this so that I can kind of come between here. Because the one consistent thought I've been able to piece together from the whole thing here is there's probably a baseline of truth in what Tommy's saying here. And there's probably a bit of exaggeration here. And the truth's probably in the middle. And after talking to him, I lean more like 60 to 70%. I'm buying what he's saying, and like 30 to 40%. I'm like, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of falling around there too. I've had some people, and it's tough because I'm also in a spot where I can't say too much because I don't want to put anybody on blast as sourcing. But I've had a good bit. I'd probably say I'm a little further than you on the more towards 70-ish%. Mainly, I think just about everything he's dropping has a flavor / kernel of truth. It just, I think some of it's completely true. I think some of it's, a little maybe exaggerated, but I think for the most part, I'm pretty on board because I've had multiple people sort of be able to corroborate in one way or another a lot of the things going on, and specifically some of the things where I was like, I don't know about all that, and then they're like, no, that, yeah, absolutely. So there were some things like that I think are notable, and either from a legal perspective or in fairness perspective, I want to throw in. So when we're talking about the fire, because he's pretty certain that whatever the situation was, the raccoons had direct lead in straight to the fire. Officially, and this is also from a comment from John Hunt himself, he points out that the fire in the house is under investigation. The initial report shows that the fire was not electrical. Yes, an exterminator had been to the house to take care of the situation. Back to my personal feelings. I do think it's interesting to say the finding itself is interesting that it's not electrical, because how many fires you would start in an attic of an old house that aren't electrical? Kind of interesting. But again, we can only go with what is told. And if that's the case, then, I mean, that's from, probably the fire department and fire investigators. So that's the one side of it. On the other side, let's see. John points to physical threats being the reason against members of the staff and himself for that being the reason for the firing, and also the reason for the armed guard. Feels like Tommy also is like, yeah, that happened.
Yeah, it definitely feels like, and he even said there, I'm going to F you up. That's the general context of what he was saying. So, I mean, it felt more in that situation, feels a bit more like theater, but also I feel like if I had an aggressive athletic guy yelling that at my face, I would probably have a different feeling about it than that, especially a guy that I already had bad blood with, whose, stuff just kind of went up in a fire. Yeah, I may have a different opinion.
Might be playing a little fast and loose. So yeah, I get it.
Yeah.
And that said, again, that's semantics because we're not really arguing the firing. They're just trying to get out there sort of where middle grounds are, at least the two sides are on some things. Yeah, it's worth noting. I mean, we've heard for a long while, that there are issues there and a lack of professionalism. I mean, I mentioned on the podcast before. I mean, I'm friendly with PJ Phillips. We worked together prior. We talked to each other a lot. And when I would check in with him his year in Jersey, there was a lot of like, bro, like, and keep in mind, he was from an Andy Shea organization, which is famously not well run. And he's back there now because that's how happy he was to get in Jersey. This is generally not a well-run, smoothly run operation. We can discuss who's at fault. I mean, even there seems to be lingering questions of how involved is Al Dorso. Is John Hunt just the face of this mess? It seems like his hands are at least on some of it. So, but then how much of it's his fault? How much is not? I mean, we had a lot of good people running the show in Lexington, department by department, but they couldn't do much in the big scheme of things. So like, I see how that could happen. So it is tough right now. So I guess if nothing else, we're sort of presenting some positions on things to people, trying to offer what at least what John has said to us, what we know from things. I mean, as I said, like I've the stories of Jersey not being able to go on the field to warm up because there's a cricket match going on a couple of years ago. Like this is not new. This is not a whoa out of the blue what is happening here type of situation. But yeah, it is a hard one to really be like, where do we go from here? Because where do we go from here? You know what I mean? I think it's worth noting that what I found in speaking to people, I have now multiple sources who have said that they, with good confidence, know that the organization was looking to move on from Bert and presumably Tommy and everybody on the coaching staff going into next year. Was it a locked in plan? I don't know, but they were at least talking to people.
Yeah.
And
to just interject, not to interrupt the train of thought here,
Yeah.
I can also say, while it wasn't outright stated to me, it was implied that at least one person involved in this mess was already interviewing for jobs for next year. It does feel like new regime, new house was going to kind of be the tone here. So it wasn't outright stated to me. I want to make that said. I just kind of had to deduce it from the one conversation I had. I doubt it's from the same people you talked to, but there did seem to be an understanding that there was going to be change, at least to people on the outside looking in.
Yeah. And so with the fact that the organization was looking to move on, according to, from all I know, the coaching staff was not aware of this, it seems. I will say, if multiple people were aware of it, Indy Ball's a small community. I know very few people who have lost a coaching role without knowing that this was a possibility. So I'm not sure if Bert was aware of it. I don't know if that really changes anything really about it. I mean, mainly I say that because I have heard from a couple people like, yeah, but Bert knew he was going. So like, whatever, he resigns a couple weeks before and he looks good to the boys. I don't know if it's all that. Bert does seem like loyal to the guys and loyal to his people. So I wouldn't go all that way. I wouldn't be surprised if he had a feeling that he was gone at the end of the year, but I also wouldn't put it past him regardless to be like, fine, if you're gonna chase my guy, then I'm gonna go too. Just if you're thinking that way, at least those are my thoughts from that perspective and the people I've talked to. It's just a lot, man. There's a lot of allegations to it. I mean, one of the most fascinating things, which was touched on, I think, in the preamble to the interview, not in the interview at all, and then later, is the allegation that DMs were being sent by members of the front office, specifically John Hunt, to like OnlyFans models using the Jackals accounts, and there's screenshots of it. Crazy. I think we've heard that that's something that the league, that the team was aware of. And
I can confirm that did occur, and that the team was aware of it, and they had an HR meeting about it, and it was handled internally. Yeah,
I mean, that's a tough scene either way. Yeah. But again, if it's handled, it's handled. So I don't know what else I mean, just because something's handled by HR and you move on doesn't mean it's fine. I mean, we've seen plenty of examples of that in recent years, but it just, it's not like, it is not saying that this revelation is going to be like, oh, someone's on the hot seat now, because it seems it's not new information to the organization. With that, I think there is a lot of finger pointing that I'm getting in whispers. I haven't gotten any of it directly, but then there's a little bit of blame shift that happens when I've been talking to some people, like they're hearing from people talking to people within the organization that other people are involved. It's not all John or it's not all whatever. So you keep that in mind. If you hear stuff that like, there's certainly some people who really work in the spin machine. I can't put my finger on exactly who's saying what at some of this stuff. But definitely, I would encourage you, if you start texting to people, and start getting some info, just vet it, because there's definitely, we've had 3 or 4 things hit us and we're like, let's check that. And then it's like, no, not really. It didn't happen like that. It's like, all right, see.
Yeah, it definitely feels like, because I've talked to people on both sides of the fence here, you can definitely tell each of them are trying to like get their viewpoint to be the prevailing view. And talking more bigger picture here, I'm very curious to backtrack on something, which was the fire investigator. I'm curious to see what that final report's going to read like.
I know. Very interesting.
I'm going to be honest with you. What that report reads is going to shape my opinion on a lot of this.
Mm-hmm.
Because if it finds it was electrical and it was the wire that kind of caused the fire, then it's a much harsher view on the organization and people involved in it.
Right, especially because of the response after this, too. It was pointed out from John Hunt. Regarding the house fire, he states that he was informed at 4:45 a.m. and immediately went to the team house. Most of our players were on a road trip, and within an hour, I'd gotten the players that stayed behind into a hotel, and they've spent the remainder of the season housed there. When the other players living in the house returned, they had rooms waiting for them. I have not heard anything to the contrary on that, by the way. It was not even, I don't think, said by Tommy that the dudes were like homeless for an extended period or whatever. So they do seem like they handled that promptly. Though again, that does not necessarily clean up the question marks surrounding a house fire. So that's something for sure that kind of makes you, it's worth noting, I guess, when it comes to the response, but also it's like, yes, but we still have questions.
Exactly. Further on that line, I'm curious to know when we start to get more of the dust to settle here, how much of this was just two opposing viewpoints as opposed to serious wrongdoing on one side or the other.
Yeah, I mean, if I could give my theory, I think my theory is there's actual wrongdoing from the club side. I think it is perhaps an overly intense response back, perhaps. Though again, I understand the thing of like we had a not overly intense response, and it did not go anywhere. I totally have seen that before. It would not surprise me, but that's just my guess. And then that again with the response leading to further wrongs from potentially both sides, and then spiral from there.
Yeah, because and you mentioned in the interview itself, we've had our criticisms of this organization in the past, and I think it's pretty well known. And again, I don't even necessarily know if it's all just Al's ownership, because you look at Sussex and he seemingly turned that situation into a positive. I don't really hear any complaints from the Sussex side of things. I've heard kind of the opposite from a handful of Sussex people where they go, we don't have any of the issues Jersey has. Now how many of those are company men that are just saying the lines versus, that's the actual truth?
We got a few of them over at Sussex.
Yeah, I'm sure of it.
I'll tell you that much.
I'm sure of that. But even still, I don't think I've seen anybody really say that Sussex is in the same, situation as Jersey is. So I'm not sure how much it is. I almost feel as though this is a situation of the losses kind of started to reach a financial toll on a guy that has two teams. He was looking to cut bait on the one, so he wasn't really looking to spend a lot of money on it. He got a prospective buyer, and once they had the framework of a deal lined up, they said, screw it, we're not spending any more money on an asset we're getting rid of. Why would we throw money into something that we're not going to see any benefit from? And kind of left it be and said, once September comes, it's not our problem anymore. And decided to kind of go cheap on a lot of things that weren't absolute necessities and play whack-a-mole with the things that were, and then just refocus on the other organization. That's kind of my working theory. However, again, I'm not concrete on that. I'm more like a wicker basket on that one. I'm very much open to it breaking and spilling all over my feet.
Yeah, I mean, I will point out when it comes to Sussex, I mean, the two quick things on that sidebar. I've had people from the Frontier League, not from the league, but within the league, like from other teams, be like, "Oh yeah, that organization might be the fastest to spin something." Like internally, a bunch of people were like, "Nah," and I have also within 3 minutes of each other. I will not mention what the issue was because I want it to. Nobody got in trouble for talking to me about it, so we're gonna keep moving. But I will say. Within 3 minutes of each other, I got a text from somebody, I'll say mid to high up the chain there that, no, that's not happening. That's completely blown out of proportion. Obviously, everything's fine here. That's ridiculous. And then within 3 minutes at the same time, I got text from somebody below that person in the chain and above that person in the chain that said, yeah, acknowledging that that's happening. We're working on it in some form of that. So yeah, everything with a grain of salt from Sussex County until they're proven otherwise. But with that, I do agree that they seem to obviously have a different situation. Is that all also just intensified by the fact that the stadium situation is so ridiculous with New Jersey? Another one entirely.
I think that's part of it. I think a lot of
tensions are always high.
That's the thing. And I think as we start to wrap up the Jersey conversation, because there's other things we do want to get to this week here, and this is going to be an ongoing situation for a while, I imagine. The problem with New Jersey has always been the lack of stability, even towards the problem's been the stadium, whether that was the dying days of Yogi, where the thing was just falling apart, or It's Hinchcliffe that genuinely is not a baseball facility. That lack of stability off the bat is an issue. There's an issue acknowledging that Patterson is not a great place right now for a baseball team to be in. There's the issue of they didn't market the thing correctly from day one. There's the issue of a constant U-turn here in who's leading this show. There's always some type of issue with this team that it's really hard when you have things like this pop up to say, yeah, no, I trust their side of things. Because you've seen so many self-owned errors before, from just little things that really don't matter in the grand scheme to genuine fundamental issues. But then you get situations like this where it's such a serious situation, you have a hard time really wanting to go after them for something, especially when there's this is such a big thing. There's another side to this. But they haven't done anything to earn the benefit of the doubt in the past. So,
and they have a well illustrated history throughout this whole move, in particular, but even before that, of there being a clear issue, and you're like, hey, there's a clear issue here, and you're like, they won't even say no, well, we have a plan or whatever. If famously, I'll go back to Andy Shea, and Andy Shea was the king of oh, it's an issue, but there's a plan, and there was never a plan. But there's repeatedly, hey, Patterson's a problem. This ballpark's not ready to go. They're like, it's fine. There's no problem here. Hey, man, Patterson's a little bit tough. And all they do is post passive aggressive statistics about how there's no crime, on the property during games. You're like, well, yeah, okay. Obviously.
I hope.
I mean, Lexington could say that, and they literally had a mass shooting at their ballpark a few years ago. And people don't forget that, Lexington. But anyway, Andy Shea. But yeah. So, yeah, that's why we look at anything coming out of New Jersey and kind of are skeptical of what is being said, because it's well, there have been clear issues in front of us, and you have been there is no issue. Do not believe your lying eyes. So when there's something where it's hey, we don't actually have visibility on this, and we need your honest perspective of how this happened, it's really hard to take that and as anything close to concrete. Is that fair? Because I was trying to backtrack. Why is it that there's certain organizations where I'll just be like what the hell are they doing over there, and not believe and be really skeptical of their side of things, because there are some things that Tommy's saying that are pretty wild. Part of it, I know, because I know the organization from the player's perspective well enough. I'm yeah, that tracks. But other stuff, there's probably good explanations for it, and I even think that, but am I still hesitant to believe it? Yes, I'm trying to backtrack to why, and I think that's a lot of it. Yeah,
it's just that they've had such a history of it. Like I said, even if you look at Sussex County, if they gave you that reason, even knowing that, they'll spin some stuff now and then, and they haven't always been a model to follow, you still can go, yeah, well, yeah, but I trust the people running the show by and large, and they at least keep it together. Their mound's not falling apart. People show up to the ballpark. They don't have a crime issue. There's other things where it's yeah, they'll address stuff. I know from going to that ballpark year to year, there's improvements made. There's effort being put there. Even if it's just the vanity stuff, they're at least doing things to address that.
That's so frustrating. I don't want to go down that rabbit hole now. I am already concerningly tight on time for the amount of stuff we're still trying to talk about. This is probably going to be a 2-pod week.
That's generally our thoughts on New Jersey. We tried to stay, I don't want to say we tried to stay neutral, but we tried to stay as fair as we could. And again, I keep an open invitation to Al, John, and the rest of the Jackal organization. They want to hop on the pod and have their piece. By all means, you're more than welcome to hop on and talk. We are certainly not going to restrict anyone's ability to do that on this show. So
yeah, I mean, tell me we're wrong. I want to learn stuff.
Exactly. I genuinely want to hear their perspective here and how it contradicts or complements Tommy's perspective on it, because that's really going to give us a genuine idea of what the hell's happening.
And here's what I'll say too. There's the obvious point, like, well, what is this? How could we benefit from this? You actually could. I mean, a lot of people hit me up, and I'm sure you have at least some of the same. A lot of people hit me up and are like, hey, what's up with this organization? What's up with that? Think about what I'm doing next year.
Oh, yeah.
Fans who are like, hey, I'm trying to spend money at this place, and we're like, what's going on here? And to be able to say, well, actually, this happened, but whatever. Here's the extenuating circumstances. This didn't happen. Whatever. It can be helpful. So I don't know, worth considering.
Exactly. I mean, I will say the people that normally hit me up for like, where should we play next year are normally the wives and girlfriends. I will say that.
Yeah, it's fairly
the
accurate.
wags are always on top of that.
Yeah.
And like, I get it. The guys don't want to do anything that could risk the career. And it's this, I'm happy for the opportunity. Live the hustle and grind life. I get that. But like, to a certain degree, the women got some more balls than some of you boys.
Dude, there's so many. This happened probably a half dozen times where a wife or a girlfriend's reached out and like, so-and-so is on the verge of signing a contract with this team. And I think something smells here. What's the read? And I'm like, girl, you're not wrong. Like,
the drama's been great this year. And the drama continues as we head to the midway. We go to Chicago again because
Daddy, we back.
So the Chicago Dogs are back in the news, mainly for making a very odd transaction. That, of course, is trading Brantley Bell. Now, why is this odd? Well, that's because Bell was having a pretty damn good season here as I go to pull up the stats because I'm always prepared. And
I mean, the Monarchs just posted a whole thing about, hey, we got like the biggest deal of the deadline here. Meet our new guy.
Well, if you ask the American Association, apparently Eric Ostag is a bigger deal, but how's that working? He couldn't handle the lights.
The lights.
Those Fargo Moorhead lights. The northern lights, if you would. But yes, in any event, Brantley got moved to Kansas City. Pretty big ad for the Monarchs. You get, an all-star bat, if I'm not mistaken?
Yeah.
Hitting 500 through 3 games. So, I mean, that's pretty damn good, I think. That's what I checked. Yeah, I mean, he hit nearly 300 in Chicago with 11 home runs, 16 walks, 245 strikeouts. Dear God, brother. Let's make contact. In 63 games. So some of the stat boys may not like that, but hey, screw him. He hits 300. Any event, so he got dealt there for not much going the other way, I don't believe. And it just seemed very odd for a team that is not only in a playoff position, but was in a position to make a run for the division title with a skittering Dockhounds team in front of them. It was very odd to see that trade. And then lo and behold, I got clued into what apparently is like one of the bigger open secrets in the American Association, which goes back to a game on August 21st, which was a 12-inning affair with the Lake Country Dockhounds. And in the top of the 12th inning, during the middle of an at-bat with the runner on third, it was a 12-pitch at-bat. The game went into a delay.
I feel like you did not go through that and emphasize it right. 12th inning. Was it tying run on third?
Oh, game-changing run on third.
Okay. Top of the inning. 12 pitch at bat in this extra inning matchup. Now tell the good people what happened here.
The game went into a delay. Would you care to know
what was that delay? Was it rain? It certainly would have been rain. What else could have interrupted the situation?
Well, it was a sky-based event. I will say that. But unfortunately, fortunately, it wasn't rain, as this delay only held up the game for approximately 20 to 30 minutes. And that, of course, was a firework delay.
Oh, well, I mean, I'm sure the team had nothing to do with it. Couldn't control that, right?
Well, it's funny you mentioned because 9:30 is apparently firework time in Chicago. Now, or rather, Rosemont, Illinois. I would assume that there is some kind of local regulation about how late fireworks can be shot off at, or something in relation to the airport that's nearby. So maybe the fireworks mess with the planes and the pilots and whatnot. I'm not really sure. I'm not an aviation expert by any means. I hardly fly at all. Those wings have been clipped, of course. But rather going back to the firework issue here, They, in fact, paused the game for about a half hour so they could get the fireworks show in the middle of an at-bat that was 12 pitches long in the top 12th inning with the game leading run on third base. So, Mr. Bell, despite this potentially hindering the Doghounds more, seeing as they were the team at bat, as you could probably deduce from this conversation, had an issue with that and went up to management and expressed his displeasure with the situation. To which management replied with the following, and I am going to pull up the message I got about this so that way I quote it correctly. I would not want to misquote here. He's an immature asshole that's, quote, tarnishing the brand.
And who would they be talking about?
They would be talking about management.
Right.
Yes, not ownership, management.
Management, not ownership. Understood.
Yes. So that's what's being alleged at the moment. And then it was approximately a day later that Mr. Bell rung for the final time in Chicago before being sent to Kansas City, Kansas, different from Kansas City, Missouri, to go play for the Monarchs. So that is the situation in Chicago. If I do get a response back from management before this goes up on Sunday or Saturday morning, God, I'm all over the map, Saturday morning, I will include in the appropriate spot. However, I'm a little doubtful on that.
Yeah. I mean, they haven't, Chicago Dogs management hasn't brutally mishandled anything in the past, have they?
Not that I can recall. I definitely never talked about this in March of, say, 2024.
2024? I guess it was. Sports Business Journal says it's a good place to work, though. I mean, I don't know what to say on this. This is something that we've had a read on for a while with this team, but, it's just common sense. There's a lot of ways to handle something that isn't, that. I mean, even pushing it till the end of the inning, even, not starting the inning when there's a chance you could run over, or
so you're waiting until the end of the
because there's also the thing of we can't, it's just the way that things work with the local, zoning. And it's I am aware of two indie organizations who have pretty tough restrictions on things like fireworks, and they have managed to be personable and patient and good with local communities. And they have gotten exceptions worked out for themselves in the case of a game running unexpectedly long, the understanding that it's not in our control. We're sorry that it happened, but it's not right to do to the customers and presumably local citizens who have chosen to pay and come see a fireworks game to then not give them what they paid for. So let's not be oh, woe is me. I can't do anything about it. It's just the way it is, when there's other organizations who have figured things out. And I know it for a fact, because after this incident, I did check in and I talked and I confirmed that was what happened, because that's how I understood it to be. And I want to double check before I move further with this. And yeah, so maybe have more of a touch on things and maybe you'll actually not run into the situation, but who am I?
But Ryan, don't you know that there is no American Association team out there that knows how to get along with their community when it comes to fireworks?
I know, right? Milwaukee and Chicago finally have something to bond over.
Really? Unreal. But yeah, assuming this went down the way it did, and this kind of goes back to the Jackal conversation of you don't get the benefit of the doubt when you have a track record.
Mm-hmm.
I just got to be honest. This is an organization that should be so much better than they are. You're literally next door to an airport. One of the biggest things to have in indie ball, an airport. The reason why Nork had Ricky Henderson or Armando Benitez. And you just can't not yell at people.
Oh, I think it says a lot that when I got the details from Tommy, by the way, who is somebody who I've already acknowledged here, somebody I've known for a while and I've talked to, and him and I have exchanged information in the past. And I was there are so many details of this that I need to confirm, because I don't know, even though it's coming from somebody who I've spoken to for a long time, I don't even know what to make of this. And a lot of these details have been confirmed, but a lot of them have changed. And I'm glad I confirmed things. When I got this information, I went, I'm going to need to confirm this. I'm going to need to text some people. However, I could not confirm this, and I'm confident it'll be right. And not a single detail has not been accurate as far as I can tell. And in fact, some of them were worse than I thought. Like Chicago, man. And a lot frustrates me because again, it's the American Association is generally a league that I'm really impressed by, and they just continue to let one of their main teams just do whatever the hell. I'm like, all right, guess we're doing that.
Yeah, let's see. I want to count how many people I had that confirmed that for me. 1, 2. Obviously, the person told me makes 3. I believe we stop at 3 for now.
I'm at 4, but I'm fairly confident 2 of them talked to you as well. So we'll say 5 total.
Okay, back on the right conversation. That's 6 different people that have confirmed this.
About it.
This thing traveled around the association quicker than I expected. I'm not going to lie to you.
You can also pick up on things by how quick people are to be like, I'll jump on that guy.
Yeah, and like the reaction too is always the same. Like the ones where people aren't totally sure, they're like, oh, that's happening? Like at least they slow roll you. This one was just like, yo, dude, you hear about this shit too?
If people are keyed into it, man, people, and again, it's pretty tied in with the fact that like people know about it. I mean, I know this is an organization who couldn't find a manager. Like, let's call it what it is. I mean, they found one. They found.
In fairness, they found a manager in Jeff Isom, and then
and
they
said,
ran him off.
I'll roll the dice on the open market rather than deal with this. And
Gary's gain.
Fact. And this is, again, not to say Matt Passarelli isn't doing a great job. He is doing a very good job. But let's be real. They signed him late. This is a top level indie ball organization. This is in the top, I'd say, third of organizations in the American Association, which is the second best indie ball league. Like, this is a good, that's cute, but the facts are the facts. Get rid of roster restrictions to be adults. There you go. I'm tired of hearing that from the American Association every time they don't get.
But how will Lincoln afford a team?
How will Lincoln afford a team? You don't, apparently, Lincoln. I don't know what to do with you. College summer ball's right there. Anyway, sorry. I've had it with the American Association people trying to be like, you disrespect. Brother, I have the numbers. I have the math. The gap's getting bigger between you and the Atlantic. They don't know what to do with you right now. Frustrating. Okay, we're back.
Why was your stance there on the video like an Oompa Loompa about to do a dance?
Because what I'm actually doing is holding my skull together because it's about to split in half. I'm so freaking tired of this conversation. So anyway.
Was Lamar given a true run?
Yeah, don't get me started on Lamar anymore. When we get to this, the point is the Chicago Dogs had multiple people reach out. They were throwing, like, what I heard was one person said 6 figures. Another person said they felt like they could definitely push Chicago into 6 figures for a manager. And now it's a manager in baseball ops position, as far as I understand, which is, that's what you should be making for doing both. That's still pretty good. And that's, and that's what I'm saying. But like, it wasn't uncompetitive. It was a good organization in a fairly good location with a convenient airport, a track record of winning, track record of fan support, and competitive, if not more than competitive pay. And nobody wanted that job, dude. People who were in spots that they have told me they're actively looking to get out of said no, and that they weren't interested. It's gonna hit the fan eventually over there.
I mean, like, on one hand, I agree with you because you can't get away with this for that long. You know, it's the Breaking Bad meme. You can't keep getting away with it. But on the flip side, too, we have it on so many different accounts that we have interns and employees and staff and whatnot, and the way that they were treated. It's just, there's too many people that talked to me and said, yeah, I was yelled at till I was in tears. It was abusive. That's not the kind of story that everyone gets together and goes, yeah, this is what it's going to be like, and then comes away with the same detail. This is not, okay, you got a flat tire. Which tire is it? And then someone says front left, someone says front right, someone says back left, someone says back right. Everyone said, yeah, we got a flat tire, and it's the front left. So, like, when everyone's on the same page with it, it's the truth. And you would think that would have came out. But part of the problem is the ownership there is in such a high-ranking position that it behooves the league to have him there, even if there is a problem with him. So until there's an actual publicly large problem, he's going to stay where he is. Let me be clear. I don't think the league's thrilled about that. I just think they kind of acknowledge the reality of the situation where it's like, ruthless business here. We're better off with them, even if it's shitty to do it that way.
Yeah, I'm with you 100%.
The main takeaway so far from this week, and really the only takeaway, is we've spent an hour plus just discussing these issues. We spent another hour doing an interview today. We spent nearly 2 hours talking about the Frontier League and the American Association for all the wrong reasons. Well, meanwhile, we have one hell of a playoff race between New York and Ottawa right now, which looks like it's going to be a half game separating them going into the last weekend of the season, which should be nail biting, as Ottawa has Tri-City and New York has Sussex. All of those seem to be fairly even matchups. They're both playing teams that have their playoff spot and their playoff opponent clinched. And so we should be able to deep dive that. And on the flip side, in the American Association, we have the West essentially set in stone. We have an East Division that's like a Jenga tower at the moment, where Cleveland's self-imploding and melting down, losing to Lincoln, getting your ass kicked by Lincoln. We want to get down to it.
You put some stank on that, but okay.
It's Lincoln. They're about to be, at the end of today, likely out of a playoff spot if Milwaukee can scrape together one more run and hold it at 3-2. And somehow, in all of this mess, Gary is still very much alive in a postseason race that they should have no business being in. And we should be talking about that. But instead, we're talking about a Chicago team that seemingly, if these latest set of allegations are to be believed, and at this stage, I mean, we have 6 different people that said, yeah, no, we heard the same exact thing. Yeah. So, inclined to believe that. We're talking about that Chicago organization remaining thin-skinned at best. And we're talking about a New Jersey team that right now, to this point, has been at best mishandled for the better part of the last half decade. And may or may not have ignored a raccoon that caused the house fire on top of questionable treatment of players. Now, of course, all of that against both the Dogs and the Jackals is alleged. But you look at the organizations and the fact that we're not immediately dismissing it, but instead going like, yeah, I could see it, kind of says enough.
Yeah.
It says that the very best case scenario, you'll win in the court of law and lose in the court of public opinion, which I guess is the best way of it going. But when you are a people-facing business, you kind of need the court of public opinion too. Mm-hmm. Otherwise, you're a short timer for this world. And especially when it's an indie ball world that's pretty damn small and pretty damn tight-knit, you start running out of lines quick. Unfortunately, we burned through all our time talking about that instead of talking about actual baseball, which would have been real fun to talk about. But the flip side of the coin is you're going to get a bonus episode in the middle of next week that's probably doing a playoff preview and talking about those playoff races at the very end. And who knows, maybe even some playoff preview stuff too. Previewing each playoff team, that would be, of course. So that's something to look forward to.
Banger, honestly. A bonus episode just talking playoff races and playoff setting up. Nice.
Exactly. Real ball lovers will acknowledge that will be the highlight of probably the last month and a half. So that being said, we're going to cut it off here. We appreciate Tommy hopping on to give perspective. And again, open invite to anybody and everybody involved in that Jackal situation, even the Dog situation for that matter, to hop on the pod and give their perspective on their respective issues there. And if you want to, you can find me on Twitter at IndieBallPod and IndieBall Report everywhere else. If you want to be more professional, like and reach out via emails, you can do so with the email address of IndieBallReport@gmail.com. So take a look at it like that. And if you want to find Ryan, where can you do that?
Indie Ball Nation, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube. Hopefully I post something this week. It's a struggle. I can't even get top 10s done right now. New job's killing me. If you want to hire me, do it.
So until next time, and don't forget to play ball.